plan is simple. Cross the RimWorld and reach the Grav core. If Wolf and Tarsier can reach it, they can create a Grav ship and find a way off this godless planet. All they have to do is reach the other side. The dirt bikes will only take Wolf and Tarsier so far, so their next immediate objective is finding and salvaging enough material to rig up something with more wheels, cargo space, and traction. The process of building a larger vehicle won't be easy. The dirt bikes can't carry much, and Wolf is incapable of healing himself thanks to his stats. Shout out to Wolf's personal physician, Tarsier, the young 20-something-year-old who has no business being on a planet like this. Tarsier was the sole survivor of an anomaly research platform that crash-landed onto this Bermuda Triangle of a planet some 50 days ago or so, if memory serves. Tarsier isn't the first crash survivor that Wolf had saved. The first was a man named Scorpion, who left Wolf to die in a place once called Lake Mountain. But that was a long time ago, I digress. Building a vehicle won't be easy, thanks to the aforementioned setbacks. We'll have to find a scrapyard that's somehow both rich in resources and lacking in threats. Thankfully, we can outmaneuver most threats with the speed afforded to us by our bikes, so long as we stay on the green belt and avoid the ice. Our fuel reserve is maintained by trading whatever salvage we have at the moment with local settlements. Our food primarily comes from whatever berries we can forage and meat we can hunt during periods of rest. It takes us a while, but Wolf and Tarsier eventually reach travel-friendly highways and trade routes, allowing the dirt bikes to go their maximum speed. The ruins along these high roads are also fresh for the taking, and plenty of neutral settlements and trade caravans pass along these roads, so there shouldn't be a fuel shortage anytime soon. This nomadic way of life persists for only a few days longer until we finally stumble across a ruin that seems worthy of securing, even if only for a few days. Just enough time to allow us to do things we otherwise couldn't do. The ruin itself has a small rock formation that's relatively easy to secure. Plenty of scrap is nearby, and there's no shortage of berries. Any pests we deal with are easily dispatched by Wolf's incendiary launcher and Tarsier's rifle. A camp like this is a fine place for Wolf and Tarsier to generate some power and create a vehicle garage. But first things first, we'll salvage the local scrapyards and gather all the material we can to get a better sense of what we're working with. We'll also establish a basic farm and harvest all the cotton and berries we can to keep the rations going. We would have stayed here, maybe even gave this territory a name, but then Wolf and Tarsier are told of an ancient outpost, operated by equally ancient mercenaries in possession of all the weaponry, armor, and shelter we're looking for. We were told this information by passing caravans as we traded them all the jade and other riches we could get a hold of, in exchange for, you guessed it, fuel and food. The outpost they're heading to is within contact range of the Grav ship core itself, If we can utilize the outpost comms, we can attempt to contact whoever currently controls the gravship core, which stands there lost within a pocket of the Scarlands. On the 6th day of Year 11, Wolf and Tarsier reach the outpost. The place is vast, certainly ancient, and covered in enough scrap to make a friggin' plane if we wanted. So, let's secure it for ourselves. As the two scavs take position, a hungry night ave corners Tarsier. The night ave bruises Tarsier with one of its venomous spines, which causes a noticeable, though manageable, amount of toxin to build up in his body. It isn't until later that evening that I spot one of the mercenaries stationed at this outpost. A cultist in possession of an entirely unique, highly dangerous bolt-action rifle, one possessing incendiary rounds and a tactical sight. The cultist in possession of this rifle takes position and immediately begins firing on Wolf and Tarsier, all while her allies are nearby. So long as Tarsier, our only healer, stays alive, then there shouldn't be any problems. The two men should be able to drive out these mercenaries with ease. During the engagement, as Tarsier falls back, the cultist in possession of the fire rifle shoots Tarsier square in the heart. His armor takes a majority of the hit, but the damage caused by the shot is enough for the cultist to make an even better shot. A kidney shot. One that kills Tarsier instantly. Wolf is able to cut down Tarsier's killer only moments after he died, thanks to a stun baton. She's not dead, but Wolf doesn't have the time to kill her. He took a gunshot to the leg, one that's going to cause him to bleed out. I almost said his days are numbered, but I guess his minutes are numbered at this point. Wolf can't heal himself, so he'll instead head straight to the outpost itself. Perhaps there's a cryo-sleep casket or some exotic drug that can buy Wolf more time. Instead, Wolf comes across empty shelves, weapon caches, and long-dead bodies. Several drones and other traps are littered throughout the entire facility, though he can't pay them any mind. Sadly, none of the goods Wolf is able to uncover can address the hole in his leg. He's limping badly now, and the bleeding is only accelerating. The situation gets to Wolf's head. He's hit with a crisis of faith, and then he gives up. He falls into a sad wander. It's starting to feel real now. As of this moment, Wolf has 21 hours to live. Wolf doesn't regain his faculties until his expiration date hits the 18-hour mark. His vision is getting weak now. His movements are becoming increasingly lethargic. He's tired and slipping into the early stages of anemia. Wolf's only semblance of hope comes not in the form of aid, but a comms relay. This is the end of the line for Wolf, so might as well make the most of it. The plan is simple. Build a grav ship and leave the surface world behind. Scorpion already has the essentials. First, the grav engine, the heart, I suppose, of any grav ship. Next, a number of grav-light panels, which acts as the framing for the grav ship. Finally, Scorpion is also in possession of a grav core, a component which isn't immediately required for this early stage of the grav ship's construction, but will, if we can get to that point, it'll certainly be valuable in the long run. There are complications with this process. For starters, neither Scorpion nor myself knows a damn thing about building grav ships. I kept myself as blind as possible to the ODYSSEY DLC in order to keep things interesting. This is going to be a messy process, to say the least. Our next problem is steel, or rather the lack of it. Scorpion is going to need a life-altering amount of steel to see this project through. We'll also have to establish better defenses. I'm sure Scorpion isn't the only stalker type looking for our grav ship structures. Those defenses take the shape of a perimeter wall that will guide any raiders into the radioactive heat sink produced by a crashed, unstable ship reactor, which produces enough rats to take care of any problems coming our way, in theory. Scorpion will also do everything he can to recruit the sapient zombie we have locked inside of our RV. Gasp, the aforementioned zombie, is smart and capable of reasoning. Scorpion should have no difficulty convincing Gasp of a glorious unlife beyond the RimWorld. Right, circling back to our radioactive kill box, our Constructoid Printer Gen 2 is busy digging trenches that should prolong all those who spend time inside our rad zone. And as Scorpion and I haven't been the most moral nor merciful of survivors, we haven't exactly made it this far by being paragons of virtue, but something about digging those trenches just saps the humanity out of me. Right, so keeping things simple, our current focus is securing the territory, recruiting Gasp, and gathering everything we can to focus on the grav ship's construction. We'll also put Gasp in a better cell, thus increasing his mood and therefore likelihood of joining. Also, the inside of the RV became so stuffy that the zombie, acclimated to the cold, was suffering from heat stroke from being in there. Eventually, as expected, raiders approached the territory, were attacked by a single, highly dangerous Psycaster that is seemingly attacking out of desperation. Despite being equipped with solid armor and weaponry and Psycasting ability, the raider is suffering from an infection of mechanoids that's causing him to rapidly age. To make things worse, the raider is already soaked in toxic chemicals. Bro is not having a good time. One thing of note is the raider's xenotype. He's a Starjack, the first of his kind ever witnessed by Scorpion. Starjacks are genetically engineered to thrive in the vacuum of space itself, like no wonder he wants our grav tech. Imagine if we could recruit him though. A Psycasting Starjack would be the perfect co-pilot. Unfortunately for the Starjack, he walks directly into our rad zone while attempting to cross into our territory. And let's not forget the rapid aging he's infected with. When he got here, he was 39, so keep that in mind. The raiding Starjack collapses from the ungodly amounts of radiation spilling out of that ship reactor. I was hoping he'd get a bit closer. I'm not about to let that armor nor the Starjack himself go to waste. So, despite still recovering from previous brief exposures to radiation, Scorpion will sprint directly into the radiation zone and attempt to grab the raider. The attempt is ultimately successful. The scorpion's radiation poisoning shot up to 77%. If he spent even one more second within the radiation during that retrieval, he definitely would have passed out and died. So this raider better be worth it. I will say off rip, the armor is certainly making up for the radiation. Right then, now that Scorpion is even more bulletproof, we can get back to the matter at hand. The grav engine will be placed in our newly created shipyard, and efforts will be made to keep the Starjack stabilized, in hopes that his rapid aging will pass. By the afternoon of the next day, the Starjack has already aged to his early 50s. Wait, scratch that, his late 50s. He's about to be 60 by tomorrow, which is both hilarious and depressing as hell to me. By the time he reached his early 70s, I decided to put him out of his misery. Unfortunately for Scorpion, executing that raider was anything but amusing for him. The execution ceremony was awkward and dehumanizing. Scorpion's mood plummets from the lost humanity and radiation sickness built up in his body. It leaves the entire early process of getting this grav ship constructed, has a sort of grim kind of atmosphere to it. It's like the moment our mind wanders to the stars, we're pulled right back down to reality. It all gets to Scorpion's head in the form of a food binge, which is the perfect moment for Gasp, of all times, to perform a prison break. Luckily, Gasp is only able to get away with an auto pistol. He did gun down our Constructoid, Printer Mark II, but he's repaired by the time Scorpion gets out of his food binge the next day. Not so long after that, enough construction is done on the platform that Scorpion decides to name the grav ship. I decided to go with the pre-generated name, the Gray Vessel. Maybe one day it'll be worthy of naming it something like Maria. But for now, the Gray Vessel is a solid name for what will most likely be Scorpion's giant gray coffin. Not so long after that, another strange omen from the stars falls over Scorpion's territory in the form of a psi-storm. A strange color out of space passes over the territory, giving way to all sorts of strange flora and perhaps even fauna to be drawn to the territory. The psi-storm has other effects. As the name implies, psychic activity drives anyone outside of a roof to, well, they're subjected to strange psychic happenings. As we can see here, Scorpion has just succumbed to a berserk state. The rage drives Scorpion into cutting down Printer Gen 2, a poor Constructoid can't take a break, followed by Scorpion marching around with a butcher's knife, splitting the skull of any animal that he comes across. The psi-storm will pass without issue. Even bigger problems arise the day after the storm passes. Of course, in the form of a raid. Specifically, a raid by a tribe of fire-spitting impids. The impids are cut down with little difficulty thanks to Scorpion's firepower, coupled with the ancient auto turret that came pre-installed in this place. I ultimately decided to rescue 2 of the downed impids in hopes of making a friend, ally, and crewmate. It's funny, shortly after I say these words, one of the impids that we stabilized immediately joins the colony. A 32-year-old impid named Panola, who only has 6 hours to live thanks to, being filled with lead by Scorpion's auto rifle. I found the name Panola to be, just annoying to say over and over again, so I nicknamed her based off of her last name, Nadawi. Nadawi was smart to immediately bend the knee to Scorpion's cause, as, that's plenty of excuse for us to use the best medicine we can on her in order to stabilize her condition. By the following morning, Nawadi is already up and walking again, though she is crippled from all the gunshot wounds. Now that she can keep an eye out on the territory, which I understand is a lot of trust to put into her, Scorpion, alongside Anklebiter, his little security guard robot, can move to the edge of the map here and enter another territory, a neighboring space, in order to scavenge for more steel to bring back to the camp. As Scorpion returns to the side of the grav ship, the other impid, Kestaju, voluntarily joins the colony as well. Both Nadawi and Kestaju immediately prove themselves to be loyal and dependable, for now at least. Understandable, if I was mag dumped and stitched back together and given another chance, I'd bend the knee in a heartbeat. The rest of the RimWorld could eat a dick. Thanks to the combined efforts of Nadawi, Kestaju, and Printer Gen 2, construction of the Grey Vessel's first chem fuel tank is completed. I'm just gonna say it plainly. When it comes to the shape, layout, design, whatever you want to call it, of the Grey Vessel, I just need you to trust the process. This ship is going to be one of the ugliest, jam-packed, strangest-looking vessels you've ever seen. It'll probably look more like an insane hoarder's flying RV than a proper grav ship. But again, you'll just have to trust the process and let me cook. But you have been warned. Then, only after spending 2 days or so with Scorpion, something insane happens. Royal tribute collectors arrive on the territory. If memory serves, this is the first time Scorpion has been met with the Empire faction of this RimWorld in, about 10 years. 10 RimWorld years. If you recall, Scorpion is actually an Empire deserter, after having been saved by Maria so long ago. But it seems enough time has passed that the Empire's opinion on Scorpion is no different than any other RimWorld scav. So why is this such a big deal? Well, now that the Empire is neutral to Scorpion, he can attempt to garner favor with the Empire and explore all the features associated with the Royalty DLC. More importantly, garnering favor with the Empire will grant Scorpion psi-casting abilities. Do I even need to explain just how insane a psi-casting Scorpion could be? Now, with all that in mind, how do we garner favor with the Empire? Well, at this current moment, it's done via these tribute collectors that just visited the colony. And those tribute collectors are only looking for one thing that we can give them. Slaves. Nadawi and Kestaju serve Scorpion well. Their only use to Scorpion now is to peacefully get into a cage, be sold into slavery, and allow Scorpion to further advance his power and status on the RimWorld. It's only fitting, then, that Scorpion spends some time stargazing immediately after handing over slaves as tribute. This is the kind of decision I normally put up as a poll for the patrons to decide. Also, hello patrons. Appreciate your investment, as always, and thank you for participating in all of this channel's behind-the-scenes stuff. Anyway, I'd normally leave something like this, like selling people into slavery, up to the patrons, but not this time. Taking steps towards psi-casting was simply too tempting to miss out on. Our xeno-humanitarian side can show mercy some other time. Anyways, Scorpion's tribute is rewarded in the form of honor. Enough honor that Scorpion receives the title of Freeholder. So we should expect to see more quests from the Empire. Unfortunately, as we near day 30, I realize the RV has to go. We need its parts. A lot of this process was possible thanks to the Lake Mountain Creed, Scorpion's ideology, which has its scavenging precept set to maximum efficiency. Scorpion takes longer to build and research most things, but in exchange, Scorpion wastes absolutely zero materials. Any construction material used by him is refunded in full upon its deconstruction, making the entire process of building this grav ship, or, well, doing anything, a hell of a lot easier to say the least. Trouble inevitably rises several days into the construction of the ship itself, in the form of cultist hate chanters, servants of the anomaly who herald its return into Scorpion's life. My mind wanders back to that bunker, back to all the anomalous hell that permeates across the frozen over, nigh inhabitable wastelands outside of the green belt lining the equator. The anomaly never forgets, and here it is, and it is hateful. While construction of the gray vessel is far from complete, the vessel is now capable of in-orbit flight, but we're not exactly in a rush to go anywhere quite yet. We just finished Phase 1 of the grav ship's development. Phase 2 would involve turning the grav ship into a self-sustainable habitat that keeps Scorpion and the gray vessel itself fed. This shouldn't be too difficult for Scorpion to achieve. I'd like to think that the wisdom earned from being trapped underground for hundreds of days would help in actuating Phase 2. Also, as you can see, we attached wheels to this thing thanks to the vehicle mod, whatever it's called, vehicle mod framework or something. So the gray vessel is also like a gray tank or something. It's a house on wheels. It's an RV. I don't know, you get it. It's a mobile flying grav ship fortress habitat science lab restaurant house shelter bunker. It's a flying bunker. How'd you like that editing? I just skipped forward like 5 days in those jump cuts. Anyway, here we find Scorpion having just destroyed a Diabolus mechanoid. a massive achievement for us of the Lake Mountain Creed. The Diabolus attacked us because Scorpion asked it to, specifically by using the Grey's newly created comms terminal. You see, Scorpion is still an early-level Mechanitor. By performing specific steps, Scorpion can use his Mechanitor abilities to beckon hostile mechanoids that possesses valuable tech required to further Scorpion's Mechanitor ability. He can make more mechs, better mechs, etc., all by defeating increasingly dangerous mechs and harvesting them for their parts. The first of these dangerous mechs is a Diabolus mech, which can only be summoned via a comms terminal, as mentioned earlier, so long as you own a Mechanitor colonist. That brings us to this very moment. Diabolus is destroyed, and now we can take its Tier 1 signal chip and keep it for ourselves. The signal chip will allow us to research even further, mechanoid stuff. We'll get there in time. Also, as you probably noticed in the background there, the Diabolus mech didn't come alone. An entire frickin' mech drop is literally just around the bend of the Grey Vessel itself. An entire mechanoid printing facility is sat there offline. So we have everyone staying inside for as long as possible right now in hopes of not triggering that mechanoid swarm. And I decided to keep the Diabolus mech's corpse. Maybe there's some method to reviving them under our control. Though I doubt it. We can always scrap it for parts. Right, so where are we left now? Well, the grav ship is complete, a Tier 1 signal chip has been secured, and now Scorpion and his mechs remain secured inside of the Grey until that nearby mech cluster is dealt with. Scorpion will use this time to research vac suits, which are essentially spacesuits with limited ability. This wound up making for a fine demo analogous to life in orbit, a sort of training and preparation for life off-world. The whole mech printer issue is solved by a friendly combat supplier, which arrives nearly 10 days after Scorpion put down the Diabolus mech. This encounter took a mild toll on Scorpion in the form of being lit the hell up by mechs and some friendly fire. Nothing he can't shake off after some good medicine and a long overdue mental break, I suppose. As for the caravan that fought Scorpion's fight, well, we thank the Fallen for laying down their life for the indifferent. It's been over 70 days since we began the Grey's construction. It ain't pretty, and it's certainly far from efficient, but it gets the job done. We have a comms terminal, trade terminal, freezer, plenty of storage, smelters, fabricators, workbenches, tailor benches, cooking benches, high-tech research benches, refineries, mech chargers, and gestators, and you get it. The ship is primarily powered by toxic waste pack generators, so the toxic waste packs generated by our mechanoids should keep the Grey's power fed. That means then that Phase 2 is complete. The grav ship is a temperature-controlled habitat capable of long-term stay, so long as we leave any unused devices powered off. That brings us to Phase 3 then. Phase 3 would specifically involve power efficiency and fire prevention, two oddly specific yet extremely invaluable measures that have to be taken. Oh shit. Bloated fungal husks shamble onto the territory. Corpses, animated by fungus in a manner similar to The Last of Us, are bolting straight for the ship. These things are infectious as all hell. And while the spores are treatable, I simply refuse to take any risks against them. Only moments after their arrival, the husks nearly reach the ship. Scorpion bolts for the pilot's seat and sets course for anywhere but here. We're not going to space yet. The Grey doesn't have the power for it. Wherever we're going will still be planet-side. We'll have to talk about Phase 3 later. For now, the Grey vessel makes her maiden launch and tears off into the sky. Given that Scorpion's never piloted a grav ship before, I'd say he did a pretty good job for enacting the Grey vessel's maiden flight. The landing was rough enough to short out the thrusters, but we've got like 70 components lying around. Wait, hold that thought. A couple of traveling scavs are being mauled to death by nearby boghounds. We're still in the Scarlands biome, and we'll remain here until the grav engine itself finishes cooling off and goes back online, which should take about 5 days. Until then, much like these scavs, we're stuck here. The boghounds that mauled those scavs might have some edible meat on those otherwise radioactive bones. This also gives Scorpion a chance to save one of the scavs' lives while testing out some new firepower that he acquired on those traders from the end of last episode. Once the hounds are cut down, Scorpion rescues the only survivor of the attack, a man slightly older than himself named John. Scorpion is able to stabilize John, though the old man's leg winds up getting infected from the boghound attack. Our finest medicine will be used to treat the infection. We'll also keep John fed. Hopefully, when he recovers from all the blood loss, he'll decide to join Scorpion. We're in need of a crew, after all. Anyway, what was I saying earlier? Oh right, the landing was a bit rough on the engines, thus requiring repairs. The robots are also busy constructing a new pair of thrusters to the gray vessel, thus substantially increasing its jump range. It won't be space-worthy, yet. We'll cross that bridge when we get to it. Also, say hello to Zoe, Oh, now what? Another ship slams onto the planet's surface. It's been a long damn time since we've seen that happen. One of the crash modules nearly lands on top of the gray vessel's fuel supply, which would have been hilarious to witness. I mean, I'm serious. If that thing landed like 2 more tiles to the right, we would have been subjected to a blinding white explosion that would atomize Scorpion. Some of the debris lands inside of the toxic lake that the Greys landed next to. Any survivors of the crash succumb to a mixture of their wounds, toxicity, and hypothermia within only a couple of hours. As for John, well, it's better to keep him outside of the ship for the time being. The interior of the gray vessel is kept at roughly less than 40 degrees Fahrenheit on average, if we can help it. Temperature's cold enough to freeze anything we keep inside of it. It's only slightly warmer outside the ship, so John will have to make do with the warmth emanating from the ship's engines. It's not a thing, by the way, I'm just saying that for, narrative flavor. Anyway. We'll have Scorpion turn up the grav ship's temperature whenever we need our crops to grow. When that time comes, we'll have John shelter up inside the Grey itself. Right, now that we're in a brief period of calm, no more ships are falling out of the sky and nobody else is getting ripped apart, we can sit down and talk. The grav engine is going to be offline for a little while longer, making flight impossible for the time being. That's no problem. Now we can initialize Phase 3 of the Grey vessel's construction. Phase 1 was building the damn thing, and Phase 2 is making it self-sustainable and entirely habitable. Phase 3 then would involve making it fireproof using fire foam poppers, maxing out its storage capacity, and building as many damn workstations as possible. Completion of Phase 3 would essentially be a Grey vessel so jam-packed with storage and workstations that Scorpion should never have to step off the ship ever again whenever he needs something fabricated. So we'll continue slagging metal, passively researching fire prevention, befriending John, bonding with the new dog Zoe, and testing our limits of living behind the walls of the grav ship. Meanwhile, John has recovered from his wounds enough to decide to become a guest of Scorpion's grav ship. This is great news for us because, as it turns out, Scorpion and John have been more or less casually shooting the shit the entire time. I mean, my god, I can't believe it. After over 700 days, Scorpion might have actually made a homie, a real homie. A single bro found among a sea of corpses, some shambling, upon an otherwise frozen RimWorld. The grav ship will cool off any second now. If John doesn't get convinced to stay or force recruited, then we'll have to leave John behind and wish him luck. But John's a smart guy. He'll be convinced to stay with the guy who owns a ship and saved his life, right? Scorpion successfully force recruits John, which angers John's entire home faction to the point of hostility towards Lake Mountain. The entire planet might as well want Scorpion's head on a pike, and I fully invite them to try. All they have to do is catch him. That was a rough landing, to say the least. Just about everything in the ship got damaged from the impact, which tripped our fire foam poppers to go off. That especially sucks because we're still in the prototype phase of fire foam poppers, meaning we can only build them if there are currently active research, and it takes twice as much effort to build them, and they won't be at 100% condition upon their construction. So, all in all, that sucks, but hey, the results of our careful navigation of this grav ship landed us squarely in the bottom of a sinkhole of some vast cave network. Ideally, we should be alone down here. You know, ignoring all the usual RimWorld insects and other cave monsters. It isn't long for the anomaly to make its presence known. As of now, it's in the form of shamblers, just a couple of them. No matter, the anomaly can cough up as many damn shamblers as it wants to, as long as they keep far enough away from our ship for the next 5 days. Of course, it only takes about a day or so before the anomaly's presence increases. Now we have ourselves a bit of a situation. I'm referring to that massive friggin' horde of shamblers just around the corner. Nope, not that one. I'm talking about this one. Yep. It's fine, as long as we stay out of view and, avoid doing stupid shit, which I have a very difficult time doing, we should be fine. Also, thanks to John, who's a bit of an animal whisperer, our dog Zoe is successfully tamed and trained to follow her assigned master, who is naturally Scorpion. That's a good dog right there. Our grav engine should be back online soon enough, though as we wait, we receive a quest from the Purple Empire, one that involves taking care of some consulate's most prized pet for 24 entire days. His pet is a blood shrimp named Anastasia. It's funny, blood shrimps and raptor shrimps were one of the first threats ever faced by Scorpion some 700 days ago, when he first crashed upon this sorrowful place. I digress. Taking care of this blood shrimp will grant Scorpion enough honor to ascend to his next empire rank, meaning this shrimp is Scorpion's key to unlocking psi-casting ability. My one and only concern with this blood shrimp is ensuring we have the food necessary to keep it alive. It lives on a carnivorous diet, but luckily for us, this is RimWorld, meaning diets like that can, for whatever reason, be partially bypassed by making processed meals. So potatoes, corn, whatever, as long as we cook it, the shrimp can eat it. Otherwise, it's raw meat. That sums up John and Scorpion's time within the caverns. The two survivors get the hell out of there the moment the grav engine becomes available for launch again. Our next stop, the coast. It's good to be back in a forest with a stable climate. This is as nice as it'll get on a RimWorld like this. To make things better, we had ourselves a perfect landing. This is the perfect place to get all the damn wood and meat necessary to keep everybody fed, chem fuel tanks included. Our time here on this tundra coast is entirely temporary. We're only here because our maximum jump range couldn't take us to the next point of interest. But we'll worry about that later. For now, Scorpion has an ancient danger to crack open. Why am I having Scorpion open in ancient danger? I think it's because I was power tripping and wanted to prove something to myself and to Scorpion. I mean, if you've seen this guy's history, you know what ancient dangers have done to it before. This ancient danger contains, perhaps poetically, a horde of flesh beasts. I'm sure this encounter is going to trigger some deep-seated Vietnam flashbacks in Scorpion's mind, but we'll have to worry about that later. They're already closing in on him. Well, that was fun. Anyway, I can't even remember what was inside that ancient danger. It doesn't matter. We'll toss whatever it was into our ever-growing pile of ancient artifacts. And then we'll just get back to enacting Phase 3. Researching more grav tech, slowly making more prototype vac suits, and, doing the basic survival research efficiency grind. It isn't until nearly a week later that we're met with something interesting. A trade caravan, to be specific. The grav engine is ready for takeoff, but we're gonna hold off from leaving until circumstances, worse or better, bid us leave this mostly peaceful forest. We trade a ton of components, leather, and other materials, of which we are in abundance of, in exchange for 2 highly exotic animals possessed by the traders. The first is a Ravager, which is an omnivorous insectoid specially bred to kill mechanoids. I decided to keep it inside of our freezer, where it'll keep itself fed and act as a sort of passive defense system. I also bought it in hopes of pushing our food demand to the extremes. I'm really trying to get a feel for how much food we can realistically produce and survive off of, and the easiest way to do that is to just keep filling the stomachs of John, Scorpion, the Ravager, Zoe, you get it. The other newly acquired beast is an undead horse, which I've decided to name Boa II. Having a pack animal that doesn't require any nourishment is just too good to miss out on. Though, I will admit, owning this undead horse brings a certain sadness to both Scorpion and my own heart. Right, now that the gray is overflowing with mouths to feed and the food to feed said mouths, we can close in on our next point of interest, a toxic scarland located at the heart of the Greenbelt. Our scanners detected more grav ship technology somewhere lying around in here, and I'm definitely not missing out on that. I'm not too worried about any grav cores lying around just yet. We're more so on the lookout for more grav ship panels to make the ship bigger. Scorpion doesn't find any of the grav tech we're looking for during his initial sweep of the ruins that were landed beside, though he does crack some old safes and grabs the gold stashed therein, to much value of the grav ship. We'll also have our mechanoids harvest as much wild fruits as possible before the toxic fallout claims the local flora. Alright, the keen-eyed among you probably noticed, John is no longer part of the colony. John and Scorpion's friendship ended almost immediately. John kept making fun of Scorpion's mom, and Scorpion is just a dick all the time thanks to his abrasive perk. It's a miracle he ever found love once. He really has turned into like Joel from The Last of Us or something. I don't know. John was a useful man, but he was too much like Scorpion, and that's the problem. I swear, ever since Maria, Scorpion has slowly devolved into, well, a paragon of everything the Lake Mountain Creed stands for, I suppose. Survivors so jaded that they can't help but place a barrier between themselves and everybody else around them, lest they risk losing a Maria of their own. It's all good though. We got our mechanoids, the gray vessel, and our good old dog Zoe. That's a good dog right there. And fact of the matter is, Scorpion and I ain't letting nobody get in the way of our ship and journey to the stars. I ain't letting Scorpion die because some mechanoids got the jump on us while Scorpion and John are social fighting. We didn't have to save John's life. Best you remember that. After days of hacking, looting, salvaging, and clearing out the ruins of mechanoids, Scorpion hacks into one of the last rooms we've yet to clear. I decided to bring Zoe along, if only to let her stretch her legs. As long as she remains indoors and under a roof and keeps her exposure to the outdoors at a minimum, she'll shrug off any toxicity. Speaking of toxicity, this is the room containing the source of the toxic fallout, an ancient generator which, if Scorpion can hack successfully, will end its toxic fallout and give up the grav core locked within it. There's also a ton of mechanoids hiding in here, which activate and closes in on Scorpion and Zoe's position. Zoe, doing what she was trained to do, rushes for the threat targeting her master. I genuinely think Zoe just saved Scorpion's life. Now it's time to return the favor. Somehow Zoe is still alive, albeit with only 5 hours left of life. As Scorpion tends to her, I have the mechanoids deliver our best medicine. Zoe is not dying on this day. Administering aid is made slower thanks to an infection in Scorpion's leg, which he picked up after getting shot by one of those ancient auto turrets a couple days back. The infection here won't kill Scorpion, it just makes tending to Zoe here that much more difficult. After 4 hours of non-stop tending, a wary, hungry, and aching Scorpion brings himself and Zoe back home, back to the gray. Or at least, Scorpion attempts to bring Zoe back. His stress levels reach their boiling point, he drops Zoe to the ground and gives in to a sleep-deprived, pain-induced tantrum. Zoe is stabilized, but she's hungry. Even worse, she's left exposed to the toxic fallout. It isn't until the following morning, after some long overdue rest, that Zoe is brought back to the bunker. Did I just say bunker? I mean grav ship. Whatever Scorpion smashed during his brief mental breakdown is repaired by Printer 1 and Printer 2, his constructoids. Sometimes Scorpion and I forget to stay paranoid. Imagine if all those drones closed in on Scorpion rather than Zoe. We can't let ourselves get comfortable. That's the moment when the planet strikes. Or maybe this ancient grav reactor is just cursed, because soon after Scorpion makes his first attempts at hacking it, the planet strikes again. This strike, naturally, takes the form of the anomaly's presence. The shadows move in strange ways as sight stealers begin hunting for Scorpion. It's a good thing Scorpion has some damn fine aim, because if his bullet accidentally damaged or destroyed the grav reactor, well, who knows what kind of shit we'd be in for. Unfortunately for the anomaly and the sight stealers is throwing at us, Scorpion is way too powerful to deal with that shit. Don't worry, Anomaly, we hear you loud and clear. We'll get out of your hair as soon as we hack open this grav reactor. Or at least he attempts to. Scorpion gets locked out of the reactor for 15 hours after his hacking attempt is detected. Thankfully, he returns to the gray vessel without being jumped by any entities. I'm sure they're being distracted by some passing scavs. A day later, after tending to Zoe and the rest of the grav ship, Scorpion successfully hacks the grav reactor without issue. The grav core is extracted, and the toxic fallout slowly begins to dissipate. Our time here is done. We're clear to move on to the next point of interest. That point of interest is something I've been keeping my eye on for a while now. Something immensely dangerous that's located outside of the Greenbelt that we have absolutely zero business messing with. A place that's much better off forgotten and buried by time and dust. And ice. It's an ancient military silo that's apparently overflowing with resources we need. But there's a catch, naturally. It's also overflowing with Necroa-inducing shamblers, and it's located outside the comfort and safety of the equator. No greenbelt means no flora and virtually no fauna. On the bright side, this should be a proper test of the gray vessel's longevity from safer lands. It's made for space, after all. If we can survive forever in orbit, then we should be more than capable of surviving the cold wastes beyond the greenbelt. Our first ill omen approaching the silo comes in the form of our grav engine overheating upon its landing sequence. The cooldown is going to be a hell of a lot longer than it normally is. On the plus side, we detect the sight of yet another grav core even further north of our position. Finally, I notice that the silo isn't exactly above ground. It's locked away underneath a hackable bunker entrance surrounded by shamblers. This is all starting to feel a little familiar, isn't it? The shamblers are dealt with easily enough, and by the time we clear them out, Zoe makes a full recovery from her injuries. Before we know it, Scorpion is already attempting to hack into the access hatch leading to the silo, a process that's completed in only a handful of hours. The interior of the silo is completely taken by darkness. I increased the brightness of my gameplay for y'all in post, and even then I'm sure it's still pretty damn hard to see. No matter, Scorpion finds a crate of disruptor flares nearby. In short, disruptor flares are basically flares mixed with a psychic flashbang that anomalous entities especially hate. It'll also provide the light that we need to see inside of this place. Right, after Scorpion recovers from accidentally flashbanging himself, my bad, he uncovers a pallet full of packaged survival meals. As he claims them, I can't help but notice, faintly, the all too familiar groans of shamblers from unseen corners and depths further within the silo. We also hear this. I'm not sure who or what set off that explosion. I'm not even sure if it was a trap, but I assume it was. But after a short break, Scorpion returns to the silo. He's got a turret pack, a decent vac suit, which acts as some pretty solid armor against damage and the elements themselves, space included, and his arsenal, though the newfound sounds of metal being scraped and banged by unseen entities does send at least one chill down the spine. No worries, can't be brave if you don't got fear after all. During Scorpion's second sweep of the silo, he finds a stash of various books ranging from awful to masterwork in quality. Books that can do things like provide entertainment or research points towards various technologies. Shortly after that, another explosion goes off, this time revealing one of the unseen corridors deeper within the silo. Some of the shamblers hidden within the silo are revealed thanks to the explosion. At this point, Scorpion is in need of some rest. In the meantime, I've had the printer mechs wall off the surrounding area with steel walls, and then construct 2 solar panels to keep the gray vessel passively powered. It's around then that I realize Scorpion has successfully babysat the Empire's VIP pet Anastasia the Blood Shrimp for long enough that, well, the shuttle has arrived to pick her up. Once we give her up, Scorpion is awarded with enough honor to ascend to the rank of novice, thus allowing him to be initiated into the Empire's psychic cult, thus making him a Psycaster, a proper reward for 2 years of suffering. Now that Scorpion is a Psycaster, he has access to Psycasting archetypes and their subsequent skill trees. I urge you to pause and give a read on each of these skill trees because I can't help but ask you, what kind of Psycaster do you think Scorpion would be? Perhaps a Necropath with mastery over the living and dead, or maybe he can hard focus into Mechanitor-based Psycasting. Whatever the choice, each of these archetypes contains within him an entire skill tree of unique psychic abilities, and spoiler alert, I won't really choose any of these myself during the duration of this playthrough. You'll see what I mean. But don't worry about that. The opinion of the patrons holds paramount in these choices, sure, but the truth is, I'd like to hear the opinion of all who witnessed the sad tale of a man apparently too lucky to die, but unlucky enough to witness the price of life. Right, now that that's out of the way, we can get back to exploring the underground silo. During Scorpion's next scavenging run here, we come across an ancient armory that contains something that probably made Scorpion's balls shoot up into his stomach upon finding it. I shit you not, when I saw this, this footage was recorded around Halloween, by the way, I had to pause the game and then look around my room, look out the window because I was so tired and paranoid from lack of sleep, and it was 3 a.m. or something. Anyway. Oh, it was actually 4 a.m. when I found the thing. Anyway, I'll stop hyping it up. The thing is an ancient masterwork level auto pistol named Scorpion's Lament. The art depicted on the auto pistol specifically shows a fist fight between Scorpion and John, a fight that certainly happened only some 20-ish or so days ago. I'm sure that makes the 99th Eldritch event that will forever scar Scorpion's mind. No, but seriously, that is some bizarro shit. I didn't get my reaction to seeing this at 4 a.m., but I was feeling the Halloween spirit. That was completely unexpected and very funny. Alright, with that weird shit out of the way, Scorpion searches enough of the silo to complete the first part of the quest associated with the silo. While Scorpion and his mechs back here make use of all the valuable plunder we scav, I'll tell you a bit more about these silos, what we know at least. This is a silo belonging to a forgotten military project called Operation Deadlife. Other Deadlife silos, other fobs like this one, are scattered throughout the planet. If we search enough of these silos and hack any military terminals they contain, we'll draw closer to the source of this entire project, Operation Deadlife. The heart is at a place called the Nerve Center, apparently the core of whatever Operation Deadlife is. Are these the shitheads that made Shamblers a thing? I don't know. Anyway, the Deadlife silos do sound fancy and all that, but as of right now, we need more grav ship parts. We can learn about all this weird shit here underground after we turn the gray vessel into a flying Shambler blender. But until then, I think Scorpion has spent plenty of time underground. We'll stick to the skies for now. Meanwhile, as I was explaining all that, a bulk goods caravan insane enough to travel the frozen wasteland arrives at our landing site. Maybe they followed the grav ship here. Regardless, it's a good thing they showed up. We cough up damn near all of our vehicle parts, books, gold, and other valuable resources in exchange for a jump pack tech print and a psi trainer. The tech print unlocks access to researching jump packs, while the psi trainer, after being injected into the brain through Scorpion's eye, unlocks a psi casting ability from the Mechanitor skill tree called Summon Fabricor. Go figure. It lets Scorpion summon a Fabricor by burning a ton of psi focus, which arrives at the territory under his control. We're not summoning a Fabricor anytime soon. Scorpion doesn't have nearly enough psi focus to warrant an attempt. It would fry his brain so thoroughly that he'd be in a coma for 40 days. We also get a phase psi trainer. When activated, it simply put, makes Scorpion harder to hit. We also don't have enough psi focus to use phasing, so basically it doesn't really matter what psi casting abilities Scorpion has at the moment because he can't use them anyway. Regardless, we'll still have Scorpion regularly perform meditation to keep his current psi focus level as high as possible, in the event that he either gains enough psi focus to cast the abilities he has or gains access to new abilities. You get the point. The cost of all this new tech is basically covered by all the plunder we're slowly extracting from the Deadlife silo. After that, it's back to the skies, to a place that brings us closer to the site of the next grav core. Reaching the site of the grav core is going to take a couple jumps, though I will admit the journey we take to reach that next site is almost entirely uneventful. Sure, the ship has a bad landing, but that's repaired in a couple days. For a while there, it was just Scorpion, Zoe, and the mechs surviving and thriving off of the gray vessel itself. Things aren't made interesting until, eventually, a single livestock caravan passes through Scorpion's territory. The caravan possesses, among other things, 3 slaves. It didn't take long for Scorpion and myself to reflect on all those we once survived alongside, though ultimately failed to get this far. We've got over 5,000 silver and over 500 bars of solid gold aboard the Gray. Maybe we can undo some of the past shortcomings by purchasing and emancipating these slaves. Well, actually, we won't be emancipating anybody. Not yet, at least. It took a hell of a lot of thinking on my part, but the fact of the matter is, Scorpion needs a crew. The only way we can get these slaves to quote-unquote willingly join the crew of the Gray Vessel is by imprisoning the slaves and recruiting them that way. Given our current surplus of food, I decided to imprison all 3 of the slaves. We'll consider emancipating the rest after at least one of them joins Scorpion's crew. After all, emancipating them outside the Greenbelt would certainly result in their death, and we're gonna be staying outside of the Greenbelt for, well, just a little while longer. It doesn't take very long to contain the prisoners in an especially cramped cell within the Gray Vessel. Unfortunately for them, the slave's prison cell is contained by a wild ravager that was once under our control, but has since returned to the wild after lack of taming. So, when the prisoners inevitably go temporarily insane from their circumstances, then get into a social fight, then attack the mechanoid hunting genetic superbug locked in the cell with them, well, you're ultimately left with a couple of near-dead prisoners, a dead ravager, and a whole lot of medicine spent to keep these prisoners alive. Somehow, I keep telling myself that we're doing the right thing. The Dirtmole and Baseliner prisoners are ultimately stabilized, though understandably incapacitated. The final prisoner, some sorry human turned waste-eating bug monstrosity as part of a genetic form of capital punishment, was only slightly maimed from that slight hiccup in production. And then, shortly after these events, as we go to fly to the next location, the entire save broke. It took me an entire week, genuinely 7 straight days of dissecting this save game with VS Code to... Nah, you know what? I'm not going to get into the endeavor it took to fix this shit, but I started fixing it up on 10/21 and didn't do any recording, editing, nor gameplay until 10/28. Believe me when I say both Scorpion and myself have lost our minds during the events that transpired during this playthrough. Don't get me wrong, I wouldn't have it any other way. The only reason I was able to attempt this multiple times was using the Alt F4 exploit. If you don't know what that is, look it up, I guess. But that meant every single time you see the screen freeze over, there was at least a 10-minute waiting period in between each attempt because the mod list is so damn massive. Though, after like 44 monsters and coffees, I fixed the damn save, and now we can move forward. I cannot thank the patrons enough. Just knowing y'all existed gave me the balls needed to sit down and fix this shit, and damn it, I did. Anyway, on with the damn show. By the time the Gray Vessel reaches the site of the next grav core, hidden away underneath an all-too-familiar hackable terminal, the days slowly begin to look and feel the same. Maybe it's just the nature of prolonging our time outside of the Greenbelt, but I'm finding it increasingly difficult to meaningly recount the days now that we draw ever closer to the end. When shamblers arrive, walls are built. When the prisoners feel like talking, Scorpion attempts to extract research information out of them. When the prisoners are feeling friendly, Scorpion attempts to recruit them. When Scorpion's psi focus drops beneath 90% or so, he meditates. When the prisoners attempt to tear each other apart, we patch them back up. When caravans arrive to trade, we exhaust them of their mass food products, and then those caravans are subsequently used to staunch the flow of any shamblers that litter the wastes. When those caravans are overran, we pick them apart like vultures. When we scoop up the remains, we find and stabilize a Norwegian forest cat and nurse it back to health. When man-eating entities are thrown at Scorpion, we use Ankle Biter as bait to slay them. When Scorpion finishes hacking the entrance of the underground bunker containing the grav core, the mechs finish building a slightly larger prison cell. When Scorpion searches the bunker, he sadly doesn't find the grav core we're looking for, though we gladly extract the rations and materials recovered from said bunker. That means the one that's further away from the vessel, yet close as hell to a horde of shamblers, is the one that contains the grav core. By the time Scorpion begins his attempts of breaking open the next hatch, only 2 prisoners remain. Eventually, much to my amazement, a wanderer approaches the ship and asks to join the colony. Scorpion hasn't trusted anybody in a long time, but at this point, what harm could a stranger do? The only catch to Snail's survival was being able to reach the ship before the frostbite got to him. It only got to his toe, and he reached serious levels of hypothermia, but Snail is ultimately quick enough to reach the safety and quote-unquote warmth of the grav ship. By the time Snail starts recovering from his hypothermia, Scorpion breaches the second hatch, recovers an entire payload of gravlight panels, and brings them back to the Gray. Now he can make some more room in this damn ship. By the time we begin expansion efforts on the Gray, Snail succumbs to the mental state typical of being around Scorpion for too long, and gives in to insane ramblings. As that happens, another wanderer asks to join the colony, a woman named Belrose. Sure, I thought, come aboard. Same rules apply, all she has to do is make it. Belrose here is a pop idol turned massively infamous, beautiful, and greedy criminal wanted for who knows what. But as she arrives, an entire horde of cultist hate chanters approach the colony and start sputtering their maddening words to drive our colonists to insanity. Those hate chanters are dealt with soon enough. In the meantime, as I send Snail to continue exploring the interior of the underground bunker, he reveals his true nature as an enemy agent of some foreign faction and defects from the colony. Unfortunately for him, he decides to defect inside the underground bunker itself, and it seems he can no longer hack as he no longer has access to Scorpion's tech, because he gets stuck down there after getting lit the hell up by an ancient auto turret, and well, we're just gonna leave him down there. Then, get this shit, Belrose also reveals herself to be a defector and enemy agent not so long after this. Scorpion puts Rose down like a sick dog, and she's relieved of her clothes and left out in the freezing cold we found her in. Finally, at last, everything calms down and Scorpion leaves the planet to journey a life of calm and peaceful luxury among the stars. No, I'm just fucking with you. A horde of mechanoids slams directly on top of the prison, damages a portion of the ship, and immediately begins carrying out their destruction. When put in a choice between keeping the grav ship exploding from fire and keeping a couple of former slaves alive, well, the decision is pretty clear-cut. The last thing we see before departing is that of the prisoners, left to the slaughter. Once again, Scorpion is alone. Those mechanoids destroyed one of the engines, severely crippling the Grey's jump range. Repairs are made in about a day's time, and we continue our expansion efforts to keep our minds occupied from this otherwise maddening world. Local shamblers are drawn to the ship's position this time around, and, well, they finally reach the ship. The shamblers destroy our portside turrets, and the subsequent explosion blows a hole into the side of the Grey vessel. Zoe, our German Shepherd, tears apart one of the final standing or crawling shamblers. Thankfully, she doesn't immediately receive Necroa. The mod author of the Necroa virus effectively nerfed the mod such that Necroa tends to only appear whenever a wound is made that specifically draws blood, so no more infection by mere touch. That being said, the shamblers don't stop coming. Even passing caravans draw the horde to our position, and Scorpion's grav ship is subject to more destruction. Thankfully, only the food supply and garage doors were hit, a recoverable loss as of this moment. As the destruction settles, I realize something that I initially missed. A survivor named Kazumi decided to stay as a guest inside of Scorpion's grav ship, despite the current nature of it. Kazumi clearly sees the vision. I almost exiled this bitch for attracting an ultra-powerful shambler to the grapeship's position when she approached, but then I realized Kazumi here is a sanguiphage, and not some useless Bruxa variant, a proper lethal day-walking pseudo-vampire that appears as a 25-year-old woman who's chronologically 45 years in age, making her chronologically only a year younger than Scorpion, and she has the beautiful trait. So, in other words, Scorpion probably fell in love with this immortal red flag immediately, and yeah, I don't blame him. Anyway, our focus immediately shifts from Kazumi to an Arctic coyote that I only just noticed literally seconds before it bleeds out, dies from the Kuroa, and reanimates as a shambler. I had hoped to gun the shambler down before Zoe could dive for it, but it's too late. The coyote breaks the skin, and Zoe is infected with Necroa that shoots up to 61 frickin% infection, while her immunity is at 0. Of course, the best medicine is used to save her. Thankfully, it takes Necroa longer than the average virus to infect an animal. It's only death or continuous damage from the infected that sets the infection percentage so high to begin with. It's, once again, my fault that Zoe is put near death's door. I swear, every time I decide to leave her auto attack on, in a way it spirals out of control, be it suddenly a room full of turrets or a random stray shambler. Regardless, thankfully, Kazumi comforts Scorpion while he goes through all of this, and before we know it, Kazumi considers Scorpion a friend, and Scorpion's opinion of the pseudo-vamp slowly increases all the same. I decide to recruit her before she has a chance to leave, a move which greatly angers her faction, but, well, makes Scorpion a hell of a lot happier. Let's just hope she isn't another desperate scav who will ultimately backstab Scorpion in the end. The only thing Kazumi can't do is self-tend, but that's fine. She can keep the rest of the ship afloat while Scorpion tends to Zoe. By the time the infection reaches 69%, Zoe's immunity reaches 25%. The mechs, meanwhile, continue repairing the gray vessel. When night falls, Kazumi takes her first share of blood from a sleeping Scorpion, then makes up for it by what I can only describe as dirty talk. By the time a nomadic trade caravan inevitably arrives, so too does an entire shitload of raiders, which leads to one hell of a light show. Scorpion and Kazumi vulture the remains of that massive shootout and then head further into the beyond to the site of the next grav core and all the horrors that might be contained therein. Cultist hate chanters arrived shortly after our next landing, and they were armed to the teeth this time around. The servants of the anomaly are always ever growing in power, it seems, always getting closer. Kazumi is the first to be gunned down. She's used as a bit of a meat shield for Scorpion given her immortal state. Scorpion is hit with a bullet that mortally wounds him shortly after that. Then, as cultists sacrifice themselves to a horde of shamblers, which, mind you, will aggro the shamblers into attacking the gray vessel, Kazumi regains enough of her consciousness to stand, blood pouring out of every other newly punched hole in her body. Kazumi uses this brief period of time to save the only man who can tend to her own wounds. You see, much to Scorpion's luck, sanguiphages are genetically enhanced with effectively healing hands, thanks to an ability to coagulate and staunch any wounds by some substance they can produce out of their hands. I don't know, sanguiphages are weird, man. But thankfully, she's able to reach Scorpion and coagulate all of his wounds before either of them collapse and give in. Then, much to my amazement, Scorpion is brought to the safety of the gray vessel's interior by none other than Zoe. The Shamblers ultimately hold their position, probably since our colonists were already down by the time they were aggroed. Scorpion doesn't wake up until 6 hours later, which I assume must have been terrifying. This is what, the 400th brush of death that he's had since day 30? Regardless, after recovering Kazumi and whatever nearby gear he can, Scorpion drags Kazumi to safety and gets the hell out of this place. I didn't let Zoe rescue the vampire because I was expecting her to betray Scorpion, but she just saved his life without making him a vampire, and that's not something we'll forget anytime soon. Sadly, things don't get any easier. Both a death pal resurrection and toxic fallout passes over the land. Toxic clouds radiate over corpses that are slowly but surely rising. The grav ship hasn't cooled off yet either. We've hit a dead end. A passing caravan offers no solace against the dead. Shamblers tear apart the members of that caravan, and more dead are offered to the anomaly's ranks. There's too many of them, and they keep rising thanks to the death pal. Soon the ship is overran, forcing all of the mechs to stay close to Scorpion, Kazumi, and Zoe. Each of them make their stand among the radioactive, corpse-reanimating miasma. After hours of fighting, Scorpion's lack of sleep and recreation is causing his mental threshold to hit its limit. One of the Shamblers gets in melee range of Scorpion, but thankfully doesn't break the skin. All the while, we watch as the gray vessel slowly disappears from the Shambler's destruction. We've done everything we can, yet Scorpion's luck was bound to run out at some point. It was always leading to this.